are in the middle of a lockdown still. I am filming this from Illinois, and we actually just had our shelter in place extended another month. But if you watched my last video, I don't think that that is a reason for people who are looking for their first job to just sit back, put their feet up on the couch, and say, well, I guess I'll wait until things look better to start my job search. I think that people should be spending time every single week, ideally every single day, looking for their job. And if I were looking for my first dev job in this environment, I would be splitting up my time in two different ways. The first way would be a really strategic approach, and it would essentially just be networking on LinkedIn. And not only networking, but using LinkedIn as the tool for this job search. LinkedIn is a really great tool for it. You can find information on all sorts of companies. You can find connections to all sorts of employees at companies. So it would be really good for you to sit down and just think of a list of what you're looking for in your job if you haven't already. Think about things like location. A lot of companies are going to be willing to hire locally before they're going to try to help you move right now. So if you can think about the locations where you can live without having to ask an employer to help relocate you, that's something really important to include on your job search. If you can think of which programming languages are you most comfortable in. Think about things like the company size. I was always told on my first job search to look for companies that have at least 50 people in their technical department. Lower than that, they might not be able to give you all of the resources that you might need, all of the pair programming help and mentorship, so that you can get from a junior developer level up towards maybe you can grow through the company to a senior level. So a company with about 50 people in their tech department is maybe the minimum that you want to go. Obviously, feel free to look for bigger companies as well if that is interesting to you. Another little tidbit that you could include in your job search criteria is, are you really interested in a company that has a big pair programming culture? I love that mine has a really strong pair programming culture, but it's not the everyday norm. We aren't pair programming 100% of the time, which is how some companies operate. If you know that you're an introverted person and it would be really draining for you to be pair programming all the time, every day, that's something to consider. If you are a really extroverted person and that could help recharge you, that's also something to consider. Are you bringing in experience from a different industry? If you have experience, say, in finance, if you've been working in finance for many years and now all of a sudden you want to be a software engineer, you will have better chances if you target for companies in the financial industry. We had one of our engineers in the cohort, I think right before me, got snapped up on demo day because he had worked a lot in the financial industry. He already knew how things worked. There was just going to be less of a ramp-up time for him to get started in his job. So include those facts when you're sitting down to think about the companies that you would be interested in working for, and then you can start to make your list of the companies that you want to target on LinkedIn. Research those companies in the first step and try to make a list based on what companies sound like they would be a good match for you, and then go from that list and try to search for employees who are already software engineers, and try to find internal recruiters. You're not going to have a ton of help reaching out to external recruiters that are like headhunters. Newer people in the industry just don't have the experience for companies to find it worth spending thousands of dollars to pay a headhunter in this scenario. But if you target the internal recruiters that are already working inside the company that you might want to work at, those are the people that are going to be able to help you talk to whoever you need to talk to. But really the end goal is going to be to connect with those recruiters, connect with those other employees. Even better if you can find employees like the software engineers that have experience on their LinkedIn that they graduated another boot camp. Better yet, if you can find people who graduated the same boot camp as you, that way that the company is open to hiring people who don't necessarily have a computer software, computer science background. But if you can make those connections, talk to those people on LinkedIn, once you have that initial kind of relationship started with the person, that's when you're going to be able to get some of the inside scoop on what's going on. You can ask the people if positions that are listed online, are they really actively being interviewed for, or is it kind of outdated information? That is something that's going on at the moment. You can find out, at some point, you might be able to hear about job openings before they're actually listed for the public. And then, last but not least, you will be able to try to go after some referrals. A lot of employers are offering some sort of referral bonus because engineers are so hard to hire for, so people will be more likely to try to help you out than not. So as you can see, I think it's a really smart way to approach your job search, trying to go through LinkedIn and making the job search in this way very strategic. And I think you need some strategy in your job search, otherwise you're just kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall hoping that something will stick. To that point, my strategy number 2 is don't be afraid to go ahead and look on some sort of job listing site. I'm talking like Indeed.com, CareerBuilder.com. There's a great job section on Stack Overflow. Look there and apply to those positions. I think if you're anything like me, you have heard those job sites as compared to, what was it? The black hole where resumes go to die. And there's some truth to that. There's a much bigger chance that you're not going to hear back from people if you apply on those websites. However, job searching is a numbers game. And I believe that from before pandemic time to now that we're in the middle of the pandemic, yes, the numbers have changed in this numbers game, but you still need to play that numbers game by getting your resume out there and actually applying places. I, for example, in the first 2 months of my job search, had applied to exactly 4 positions. I was doing myself no favor in that numbers game because I just wasn't actually applying places. You're definitely not going to get a job if you don't apply for it. Make sure that you're putting your resume out there, you're actually applying, and you're at least giving yourself a small chance. Luckily, in my job search, somebody eventually convinced me that I should just go ahead, even though I didn't necessarily feel ready, go ahead and just start applying, especially continuing my strategy of networking. I was getting coffee with people, having lunches with people. Go ahead and continue that, but also just apply places. I had a generic cover letter already drawn up that I was able to tailor. Honestly, within about a month of starting that process, I did hear back and I accepted my job offer. And I'll toss this one out there, especially for the women watching the video. Do not be afraid to apply for things that look like they require more experience than what you can offer. Please just do it. If a job is looking for some engineer with 2-3 years of experience, absolutely apply. I think I actually applied to jobs if they were looking for 5 years of experience or less. And my strategy mentally was, you know what, if they are really desperate, they're going to reach out to me and they're going to train me on the job if they need. Granted, the environment is a little bit different than it was, but I see no problem in just going for it anyway, because we don't know when things are going to change back in our favor, and a lot of times we as women, as junior developers, can underestimate ourselves. So go ahead, apply, give yourself at least the chance of hearing back and hearing no, or maybe you might not hear back from some companies, but at least you have put in your effort and done what you can. My issue when I went ahead and applied for my job and then did hear back from that company, I didn't recognize the title of the job that I was eligible for. So when the recruiter reached out to me, they explained to me, hey Brady, we actually need somebody with experience for this job. But I'm not sure, did you see this other job? It was an engineer support role. And I had not. I didn't know what the title meant because they were a little bit fancy with the way that they had listed it. So I had missed it completely, didn't recognize that it was an entry-level engineer role. And when I heard about it, of course, I was so ready to get my foot in the door somewhere, and it has worked out for me, I will say that. Now, the other thing that I heard helped me out was I did include things on my cover letter and on my resume that kind of made me stand out from the crowd. I have taken a while to realize what I want to do when I grow up, and before I knew that I was really interested in learning languages. So I studied Spanish and Italian when I was in college, and then I graduated college and moved to Vienna, Austria, where I learned German. So on my resume, I made sure to include the fact that I speak Spanish, Italian, and German. And it turns out that was one of the reasons why they gave my resume a second and then a third look, because they figured I could kind of think outside of the box, and they wanted to just at least hear more about me and give me my chance in an interview. So don't hesitate putting things on your resume, even if it's for a resume to get hired as a software engineer. Make sure that you're including little bits and pieces that show a future employer why you stand out and why they should talk to you. And again, I understand the economy is a little bit different now than it was back when I was looking for jobs, but really all it takes is that one company to be hiring. If you and the things that make you stand out match up with what they're looking for, that's all it takes. So this has very much been a one-sided conversation up until now. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions. If you disagree with anything, let me know. Give me a comment below. You can go in the description and find my website, find a time to talk to me if you think that would be valuable. But other than that, I hope to see you in the next video and hope you'll stay safe out there.